is food.
So weird potential connection, maybe no connection. Like I remember in college when we would learn about like different business marketing tactics. And when you're learning about something and they have it up on a presentation slide and someone's talking about it at length for like an hour, I'm like, yeah, like obviously, like
Yeah.
why do I need to like this stuff seems so basic if it's been written in textbooks for 50 years, why do they need to hire some guy to come in and implement it? And then you kind of realize like, okay, everybody's got like a hierarchy and like certain people are responsible for certain things. So it's not like just because it exists on the internet that someone's just going to be able to come in and like make it happen. Like someone needs to own it.
Yeah.
Um and then I guess in some correlation with what you just said, it's like, I'm sure none of those things that you just decided to finally put down on paper are like revolutionary and new, but it took you taking however many months and years it's been that you've
Mhm.
been working towards this to finally be like, oh, like I'm going to connect all of these dots, put it on a piece of paper and use this moving forward. But it took X number of sessions for you
Yeah.
to just organically decide that like that's what works for you. And you'll probably
Yeah.
keep making tweaks.
Yeah. Like this is what I'm generally seeing typically in couples. And this is a really good way to just be like, here's something, this is what we're working towards. Like, you want communication? This is communication. Try it. Tell me how it fails. Tell me how it succeeds. And from there, I'll help you build skills. Instead of me just like, okay, what do you need? It's like, well, now we have
Yeah.
something to, we have a modality to like work towards.
Why what is it in the brain or like the way humans are built, like why is that journey to get where you want to be such a struggle? Like you want this tried and true process right away. Like if someone told me, and I'm in couples therapy, that hey, we're going to go through the next 5 weeks, each week I'm going to give you one thing to work on very consistently each week, and we're going to continue to build. A lot of people might just be like, no, just give me all five.
Yeah.
I'll do it. Or I'm going to start a new diet and I'm going to eliminate all of these foods instead of like gradually working towards getting where I want to be. Why is that such a barrier in our head that you don't want this, you want the immediate gratification, I guess is the short answer, but what is that?
Yeah. But like, why is that more enticing than, yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely have some thoughts. I think it's really good, like consideration. But
Yeah.
what do you think? Like, what's your initial assessment?
I'm trying to go deeper than just saying that it's the instant gratification. I'm thinking about how maybe you get a taste of what it's like to get something immediately in other areas of your life. And it's hard for your brain to categorize what can be a quick fix and what needs to take time.
Mhm.
So something like, rebuilding a relationship or becoming a better communicator or developing a new strategy for how you approach different things with work, relationships, friends, your gym, whatever it might be. Some things can be a quick fix, like, hey, oh my God, dude, you've been boiling rice. There's a rice cooker. It's still going to produce
Mhm.
the same result. You make one small change and you immediately get a better outcome that's faster, easier, more consistent. Not everything has a rice cooker solution.
Yeah. That's actually a good analogy.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good analogy. Um, yeah, no, I'm 100% with you on that. I think that honestly, my brain is like jumping all over the place because there's so many different like factors in this. Um, can I just like talk out loud for a couple minutes
Just
and
let
see
that
where it
brain
goes?
flow, baby.
Yeah. Um, so like I think initially that quick fix, short dopamine, I want to be like, oh yeah, that's just our society today. We are a society of quick fixes. People don't want to put in work. And that's true. And I think our society actually like builds that even more. But our society wouldn't have evolved that way if that wasn't our natural inclination to begin with. I don't think. So I think it's deeper than that. I think people have an idea in their heads of what they think they want. Of, if I'm hungry, oh man, if only, oh wow, that pasta sounds good. Okay, then I eat the pasta and I'm like, I kind of want more food. Like I'm not full now, or I'm full, but like that didn't do it. It's like, oh, well, maybe I should have added some protein to like be more satiated. Maybe I should eat the protein first, right? like now I can think back to it when I'm not feeling hungry. It's like, man, yeah, if only when I'm hungry, I remember to do this order to actually get the result I want. So I think we have so many patterns in our life of doing what we think will work, ultimately with the goal of being comfortable. Because when someone comes, hey, I'm in relationship distress, usually it's like, or hey, I'm depressed or I'm anxious. It's like, okay, and oh well, it's causing me distress in my life. That's the key thing. You could be depressed your whole life, and if it doesn't bother you that much, you could just live depressed. So I think about it as like really we are craving homeostasis, we're craving comfort. Um, and usually what's really cool about my profession is I see people who have attempted to satiate that craving for comfort in their own way for some amount of time, and now are like, look, I don't know what else to do. Like I've tried what I think works, and clearly it's not working. You know, I was depressed, and so I started drinking, and that took it away for a little bit. So I kept drinking, but now that's more of a problem. Now I'm more depressed. Now I'm less in my life. You know, so I can see how like things would naturally build from that point, whether it is as simple as like changing your diet or going to the gym. Of like, hey, can you give me the quick fix? Like, of course you want the quick fix because you want to be efficient. You want to be as comfortable as quickly as possible. But when we really go to the root of fulfillment of meaning in life, I think we get a different thing. And ultimately that thing is process. Like if you needed $50 for a new game for your game system, and I just gave you $50, you'd appreciate that. But you wouldn't appreciate playing that game as much as if you went out, you worked, you did something out of the ordinary to earn money for the $50. Like now we put effort in and then got connection with something that's meaningful to us. And I think that
Yeah.
pairing of effort and connection, earned connection, is ultimately what's going to satiate our appetites more than just like a quick fix.
Yeah. This is making me think about something as simple and you're gonna laugh. Like I've been back on a RuneScape kick lately, me and Ski. And I
Mhm.
love whenever me and him are both in it because it's fun to play a game and then have someone, whether it's, you're going to the gym with a buddy and you're both
Yeah.
progressing together, whatever it is. Like right now, like it's just like the game that's on my mind a little bit, just as something I do in my spare time. And then I'm doing it with my cousin too. And online, as most games or pretty much everything now, there's a plethora of information and guides and optimal is like the word that I always think about when I think about like RuneScape. Like there's
The
always
best way to
yeah,
do
there's a
like, yeah.
best way to do it. Even back whenever I was playing Call of Duty, not competitively, but like playing for a couple bucks on like game battles or playing in like a Fortnite tournament, it was always like, how to like optimize your ranking. And then it was like, if you're not using the best gun or the best setup, you're putting yourself in an immediate disadvantage. And I feel like with all the access to information we have, we kind of lose that journey of figuring it out for yourself because someone already put that work in for you. So now instead of like going into a new quest or a new game mode that comes available, instead of just going through that myself, it's like, boom, I immediately am looking up the YouTube video guide and then doing it myself. And I'm skipping over the game dialogue that explains it and that I probably could have figured out for myself over time. And I think about that a lot, even just with something as simple as the game. Like, why am I jumping to the optimal version and not just enjoying the process of learning it myself? And there's like certain areas of life that I feel like, you want to challenge yourself to figure it out yourself. And there's other areas that are just better off figuring out the best way right out of the gate. But I've been thinking about that a lot. And then I notice like how much I use Google or ChatGPT or YouTube videos. And it's just been compounding over the years how many things I tend to just go straight for the, hey, what's the best way?
Mhm.
And like if I'm not doing it the best way, I feel like I'm um, losing out on productivity or something.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that is a very, 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 very real thing. And I, it's actually like you've actually I don't know if I've really shared this because I don't know if it has come up, but you actually just talked about one of my fundamental things I think about when it comes to therapy or like helping someone just improve their quality of life. And that is that there are a lot of people who tell us how to do things and what to do and the best way to make $1 million and the best way to start a business and the best way to and look, it's wonderful that we have those resources because we do learn from one another. And life is hard if you only rely on trial and error. Like at some point you want to jumpstart it a little bit. But that becomes addicting because it makes everything so much easier. But that's like assuming that the destination is the goal, when in reality, learning how to get to the destination is the goal. Because only when you learn how to get to the destination can you extrapolate that, can you learn meaningful lessons from that, right? The only lesson I learn when I'm Googling best way to, so for instance, Ruby needed a vet because she got a little injured, and I'm not going to trial and error go to every single vet. Oh, this experience. I'm going to read reviews. I'm going to look on Reddit. I'm going to ask for, because that's not something I need to waste time trial and error on.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a personal thing, like I'm right now trying to get back into a workout routine that is supportive of how I'm injured, but also able to match my like workout goals. Okay, well, I could go to a physical therapist and I could do all these things, and that would be helpful. But ultimately, I'm not going to learn how to listen to my body and gauge the pain and see what's good pain and what's bad pain, get in touch with myself in a way that's going to be able to extrapolate if I get injured again or if this injury recurs. And I'm not going to remember of like, oh yeah, I tried that. And right, it's just like, oh, the physical therapist told me to do this exercise, so I did exercise. If it doesn't work, then what's my only recourse? Go back to the physical therapist. Hey, that didn't work. What next? You know, versus like
Yeah.
leveraging those resources, leveraging Google, leveraging physical therapists, but ultimately making it my process to listen, learn how to listen to my voice and take input from all these other ones rather than listening to these voices and neglecting input from my own.
Yeah, for sure. And part of me was just kind of thinking, is that just part of our evolution, however you want to word it, where, you know, even if you're, go back, hundreds of thousands of years or whatever, and you're just simply needing to make a fire, someone taught you from the time you were born the best way to make a fire. There's no need for you to go and reinvent the wheel. So it's kind of like that balance of not reinventing the wheel and just doing what you know works, but also making sure that you're taking the time to find some growth out of that thing you're trying to accomplish. And I
Yeah.
guess yeah, like that's kind of my takeaway, I guess, from this. There's certain areas that it just makes sense to leverage the existing work that's already been done to get that task or goal completed. And there's other things that you should, and no one teaches you how to do that, how to own it yourself. And it's like a math problem or something. You could go and look up the answer, sure, but it's the problem solving to get the answer that is actually important. It's not the
That's
final
the skill.
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think just finding what things you should take the time and do on your own and what things you should leverage those external resources of others that have done it before you.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And if I may just add like one
yeah, yeah, yeah.
thing that you made me think about, um, or as you were talking, I thought about it. You said, are we just like, is that part of our evolution? I would actually argue that it's opposite of our evolution. I think we see innately that human beings are created with the ability to create and the ability to distinguish when something is enough. This is a very specific thing that differentiates us from most other, if not all other animals, right? If I put food in front of my dog or any other animal, most of them are going to eat and gorge themselves. They're not going to know when to say enough. Human beings, even though it's hard for us, we have the capacity innately to say enough, right? I'm full, or I don't want to do that, or you know what? I got to a point in my drug use that, or alcohol use, or game use, or etc. It's cost me too much. That's enough. And when we don't honor that, pairing it with this ability to create that's innate to us, I think that's when we get kind of detriment in our lives. But the reason I say it's almost counter evolution is because of just that. I think we see most, I'll say most because I don't like to use general all or none, but I
Sure.
would argue all children who want to explore on their own. And the older they get, the more confident they get, the more they kind of get away from the safety of the family and try to figure out who they are. Depending on a parenting style, that's going to reward that child for doing that. And if it's a neglectful parenting style, they might go so far that end that they're so disconnected from their family, there's problems. Or maybe they're sheltered so much where every time a parent's anxious about the child stretching out, it's like, oh, no, 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 you can't do that. So now the child only learns to look to the parents. When in reality, when I'm 16 and my dad tells me, hey, this is how you drive a car safely, well, guess what? I'm going to test the bounds of that. I'm going to drive unsafely. I'm going to learn eventually over time. I'm going to learn, hey, what my dad was right. If I listened to him then, it would have maybe decreased stress through potential accidents or speeding tickets or just stress in driving. But I had to learn that for myself still. And I think that shows a healthy style of like identity exploration where I'm comfortable listening and taking input from other people, but I'm going to test that. Now, over time, as I do that more and more as I get older, I know how to discern wise advice that's relevant to me and unwise advice that maybe I could take something from it, but not the whole piece, and apply that more efficiently to my life. I think instead of that discernment and identity process that people go through, society is and parenting strategies are stepping in to say, no, 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 you don't have to think for yourself. You don't have to explore for yourself. Just do this. Just Google it. Just use ChatGPT. Just listen to your mom and dad. Right? You don't have to become your own person. But that in itself is what leads to long-term distress because if you never learn to trust yourself, then you always need something else. And if that something else isn't there, or if there's multiple of those something else's, how could you not be anxious? How can you not be depressed?
Yeah, dude, that's deep. That definitely brings up like a whole nother avenue that may or may not fit into this conversation. But yeah, it's like, who do you want to be? What do you stand for? How do you want to operate in the world? And I think, that's kind of the beauty of just, our country and
Mhm.
the fact that we're just human beings, that you can decide what your limit is, what areas you want to go the extra mile on and learn for yourself. You can watch a million tutorials, and that's kind of where this breaks into. Like, you can watch a million tutorials on how to play the guitar, how to play the piano.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean that just because you watch one tutorial that you're going to pick up and just play the piano. So you have to put in that work.
Mhm.
So I think that, yeah, it's like the things that just straight up take the time and effort to master and learn will always exist. And the things that are worth mastering and getting better at for yourself will be those challenging things that never will be able to just be a plug-in that you just, I was thinking of a day if like somehow like Neuralink or something ever became just embedded
Yeah.
in like all people, could they program you to just be able to play the piano or sing or be an expert writer, and if so, that's again just going to be one of those conscious decisions you have to make as an individual. Do I want that kind of
Mhm.
integration with technology, or would I always strive to just be kind of a little bit more independent and only leverage those resources as I see fit for my own personal growth and preferences? But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of beating the dead horse on it now.
Yeah. Well, and it's like ultimately what and why is it important to you? Like if we do get to that point, which I could see, I think that would be really harmful for society, and I pray we do not get there. But if we do, I can see videos of someone who was trained by Neuralink and someone who was trained personally, and you could see a more technical skill possibly in the person who was trained by Neuralink, even if this person worked their whole life. But the soul part of it is probably not going to be present, is going to be my hypothesis if we ever get there. And that is what makes good artwork. That's what makes, the reason I'm a good therapist is because I'm so passionate. I pour my soul into it. I've learned what works for me. I've learned what works for other people, and I pour that into everything I do. Um, and I think if we miss that, we take the humanity out of it, which ultimately would not be a good thing.
Yeah. So you saw the rollout, I assume, at least a clip or something of it was weird. I don't know if this was planned or just happened to be this way, but it maybe the timeline isn't even as close as I think it was, but literally it felt like over the weekend I saw the SpaceX rocket successful landing and catch whatever it did, the cyber bus that could hold 20 people, the steering wheelless driving car, the Tesla human robots that were out walking around, and
Oh,
Two Chains, the rapper, was having a conversation with one and saying that he was going to buy it, and another Tesla AI robot that was literally acting as a bartender. Did you see these clips?
no.
Dude, there was one clip of a Tesla robot that has some kind of, interface in it so that it not only is able to move like a human-ish robot early stage, but also communicate like one. It had a cowboy hat on and
Oh,
had its own little like accent and personality, and it was making jokes, and someone that was standing at the bar while another guy was ordering a drink said like, "Hey, you better ID him." And the robot like stopped, grabbed the card that the guy gave him, looked at it, identified that it was indeed not a real ID, and like made a joke about how it's like, hey, like this isn't an ID, and gave it back to him. Like
yeah,
it's
that's
so neat and so fascinating, but I'm also just
fascinating and
like,
terrifying.
man, like, yeah, like, I'm not gonna be cliche like everyone's saying, like, wait, iRobot and Will Smith warned us about this, because I don't think that like that's as prevalent of an issue as like people are like immediately jumping to the conclusion that it is. Like I would like to think that the people developing these kinds of things are well aware of the drastic negative in the regard of like robots taking over the world. But man, it just got me thinking, like Elon Musk said in himself, like in the clips, like, if you want it to just be a friend or do your dishes for you or clean up the house, like it can do that. um Again, kind of tied into our conversation, do you want to be one of those self-sustaining people, or are you okay with having a robot that lives in your house that takes care of those mundane tasks? I mean, shoot, I'm already paying someone to cut my grass, and I just had some cleaning ladies come over last week to do some tidying up, and I'll probably have them come over once a month. I don't think there's any harm in that. I think it's, me being conscious of like how I want to spend my time, and if I have the means to have someone else take care of those things so I could put my time into the things that I want to do, that's okay as long as I'm conscious of it. Um, but yeah, again, kind of like where's the end of it to the point where I don't need to think anymore. I don't need to move anymore. Where do
Mhm.
I even drive my joy and fulfillment from
Yeah,
if
we go
all
from
of the
iRobot to Wally, if you remember Wally.
yeah, I never ended up seeing Wally, but I'm familiar with the movie.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking, everyone's sitting on an air blimp in space, just obese and doesn't even walk for themselves or feed themselves or anything anymore. Um,
Yeah, that would be a weird state of mind. And honestly, I'm glad that like augmented reality push that seemed to be like super prevalent, especially like when NFTs were coming out, where everyone thought that like really much sooner than later, and it still could happen. We were all going to live in, not all, of course, but just, a lot of people were going to live in these like virtual
mhm.
environments. Um, Man, what does that
Yeah.
look like? Do you wake up with some kind of headset on or an implant that allows you to just like sit on the couch but exist virtually in this other world and interact
Yeah.
with people?
And you can see how that's alluring to people who feel so out of control in this world, which most of us do if you focus on those things, which certainly has been me at times. And, if I really think about politics and the world, I'm like, oh, look, I'm just going to focus on what I can control, which is right within my life. Um, but I can see how people get to that point, but it is really sad because, uh, I'm going to use the house example, and certainly nothing I'm saying here is meant to be like with judgment or like I know better or anything like that. So I just want to preface that if any person randomly happens to see this,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
want to make sure I clarify that that's not my intention here. Um, it's just kind of an opinion and my observation and like from my life experience and from what I do. But you know, I don't love cleaning my house. I don't love like doing the dishes, even with the dishwasher or anything like that. In fact, I hired someone to mow my grass when we had the place in Charleston because I waited. Of like it was taking a day, one of my like few free days. Even though I enjoyed cutting the grass, it now was something I didn't enjoy, and I don't think that there's necessarily anything wrong with that type of thing. But when we almost sublease all of our responsibility to the things that we purchase, it's like, okay, I don't clean my house. I don't cook my food. I don't take care of my kids. I hire a nanny for that. I hire a chef for the food. I hire maintenance for my house. I hire, uh, an assistant at work to respond to all my busy emails. I just have meetings once a day. It's like, tell me you're happy. Like, tell me not like fleeting moments of happy, but tell me that you've really found the sense of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment in your life, if that's what you're doing. And the reason I articulate it that way is because happiness is fleeting. You're going to be happy, right? I go on this vacation and oh my gosh, I was so happy. If only my every day could be like this. And they try to make every day like that. Well, guess what? Now that vacation is meaningless. You know, if I sit back in my apartment, even though I have an apartment now and I never clean it, and I never take care of anything, and I never take the dog for a walk, and I just focus on me and how things affect. Oh, I don't want to do the dishes because that's my time, and I don't want to take Ruby for a walk because, and I don't want to listen to my wife because it's just my 1 hour off of work. It's like, okay, that's fine, but what's the cost of that? Like, am I going to be able to engage in a deep, connected relationship with my wife if that's how I treat her? Am I going to appreciate the house that I live in, even if it's not what I own right now, which is an apartment, which is different from me, but I'm treating it similarly? Because to me, it's a reflection of how I take care of myself and my family if I take care of my house that way. Am I building a strong, connected relationship with my dog to maximize our limited time together? If I'm like, she wants to go outside, but I just feel like sitting on the couch. It's like, yeah, those are all options. But the meaningful parts of those are the things people still want. But without the work, I don't see how you really ultimately get there. I think we get what we have today, which is a sense of entitlement of, oh no, I deserve those good experiences. You do deserve it. You're a human being. You're valuable. You're worthy of that. What have you done to earn it? Not saying that you don't deserve it, and the only way you deserve it is by doing work. But do you understand the concept of that value if you didn't put in the work? And we don't have to do that with 100% of the things in our lives. Surely, if I can get someone to cut my grass so I can spend more quality time with my wife and dog and engaging, okay. But when we sublease every responsibility out, then yeah, I don't take my house. My house that I purchased isn't as meaningful to me if I'm not doing any work on it, or at the very least knowing what's going on and hiring the appropriate people to do the work. You get what I'm saying? And I could go on and on, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, no, I definitely get it. And I think that it depends on, what was the process of you getting to that point is definitely big to take into account. I wasn't born into a family that just had maids and someone that cleaned the house and
Mhm.
cut the grass and did all of the menial tasks. So I was fortunate enough to work towards through my own ambitions and goals and discipline to get to a point where I built a career and made enough money to purchase those services for myself.
Mhm.
And then I think the challenge is then making sure that I am putting that time back in the right places. If I'm putting that time into just things that are completely, you know, irrelevant to me, and I'm just scrolling on TikTok while I have someone out cutting the grass and people here cleaning my house, I don't think that that's a good representation of what the point of it all is. But um, I think that that's the challenge, making sure that if you are going to do those things and not take care of those menial tasks, that you're getting that like reward system fulfilled through other things.
Mhm. Yeah,
I think that
you're
that's,
leveraging and using that energy and time into things that are important to you,
Mhm.
which is the point. Because I'm not trying to say, oh, Jesse, you should be cleaning your house. if you really have no care for that stuff and it's just a place you live, but you still care about your house, but it frees up your time. Okay, that's a personal decision. That's why I'm really not trying to speak with judgment.
Right.
And I love the way you framed that of, yeah, it matters where you came from. And hey, I earned this. I worked really hard so I could be in a position to do that, so I could have free
Hmm.
time for this because I earned and learned that over time. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's wonderful. And that's
Hmm.
absolutely a very healthy way, in my opinion, right? Because I'm not the arbiter of healthy, but I think that's a healthy way of thinking about that, of, not just taking it for granted. And you know what? If it's meaningful to you to sit on the couch and do TikTok while you watch someone clean your house,
Yeah.
okay.
Who's to say
I
that that's not okay?
personally don't think you're going to get meaningful life fulfillment out of that, but I'm not here to, if it works for you, it works for you. Like, I'm not here saying you shouldn't or should or whatever. I
Yeah.
just, I just know that, and very, very briefly, I'll make this very brief, but it's kind of a point that I recognized recently. Um, when I was reading through, Bria and I were reading through Genesis to the creation story again in the Bible, and something stood out to me here that I didn't like really catch before, and I wrote an article on it on my blog.
Yeah.
But it was God created a garden in Eden, and he put the man in there and gave him dominion over the field to take and keep the garden. And like, it's such a small line that I always glimpsed over, but I realized like that in itself is wisdom for life, of that if Adam was just placed in the garden and it was like, hey, we have lawn keepers and
Yeah. Just
landscapers,
come
just,
grab a tomato when you're hungry.
yeah, whenever you just wander around. Like, that speaks to where we get fulfillment from. But that fulfillment was completed when God, just after that verse, it says, and God realized that it was not good for the man to be alone, and he said, I'm going to create a helper that's good for him. And then he went through all the animals, none were good helpers, so he created woman. And Adam has this outburst of like, which we could all kind of relate to when we feel heard or seen or understood for the first time, of, at last, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. I will call her woman because she came out of man. It's like, okay, so we have purpose, right? I'm not going to say just work, because I think purpose can come through different things. And I don't want to insinuate like work as 9 to 5 as the meaning of life. But once you have purpose with connection is like where you get fulfillment in life. And that's really what I believe.
No, I agree. Yeah. And I think that to some extent that ties into just again, like where do you put your time and energy?
Mhm.
Like if you that kind of made me think about how then you can leverage the work that someone else is doing for you and then do work that would benefit them too. And that's where relationships come into play.
Mhm.
There's, the dichotomy of a man and a woman holding a house together and then having a family. And like it's a contributing effort where, you might, if you're alone, find fulfillment in doing those menial tasks that like I'm currently paying someone for. But then if I'm having, my wife or someone take care of those chores instead of paying for someone, that still puts me in a position to have extra time back in my day to devote to other things. And I think that that might even be a missing piece for a lot of like people, men, women in our generation, where we're not having families as early. So we're in that stage of our life where we feel like there should be some kind of next step. It's
Mhm.
like, yeah, could I go crazy and try to like go all in on my career even harder? Sure, I don't know that I would necessarily like rise through the ranks
Yeah.
necessarily because I did that. So I have such a limited outlet, I guess. You can only work on yourself so much. You can only put so much into your career. Um, and maybe that's a missing piece that prompts someone like me to question whether I'm using my time correctly. I don't know. I'm kind of off on like an external or like a different
No,
rant
I
right
think
now.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's
Yeah.
super connected to what we were talking about because, if we just take the idea of like purpose and connection as creating fulfillment in life, you really see that those are meant to be done in balance. Like, even if you take again the biblical narrative,
Hmm.
Adam wasn't like, at last I have work to do, That's not what he said. He had the outcry. He was doing things, but he had the outcry when he experienced the connection. But if he had the connection without the work, without something, without purpose in his life, then the relationship itself becomes the point of purpose. And that's where like codependence happens. That's where the relationship
Mm.
becomes an obligation rather than something that's uplifting. And so I completely see what you're saying. And the same happens when you don't have that meaningful connection in your life. Now, I don't think it's exclusively found in marriage, but I think it's best represented in marriage. I think you can have that with friends. I think you and I have a relationship like that, right? We drive each other to purpose. We have meaningful conversations and we have a strong connection there within. I think we have a very balanced relationship in those facets. But if I just had that and I didn't have my wife, I wouldn't like feel the same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed. And even just, and this is like kind of a topic I wanted to discuss a little bit too. If it makes sense to talk about now, it's fine. Like, I called you today because I knew that my options were just jump on the call without saying anything. I could text you and be like, hey, man, I'm not feeling the call today. Let's reschedule for tomorrow. But I feel like the choice I made was the right one, which was just a call, be transparent about where my head was at, talk through it with you. I'm not calling with a definitive decision that we're not having the call
Mhm.
today. I called just to kind of say, like, hey, just transparently, I have something going on in my head that makes me think I'm not in the right mood to get on the call. And here we are, probably 30, 40 minutes in already. And all it took was me just getting it off my chest,
Mhm.
not expecting you to demand that we get on the call, but just more or less give me someone to vent to and then help me make my decision. Someone could argue that I should be able to make that decision on my own, but I leveraged like our friendship and the kind of feedback I would have expected from you to help me guide into the right decision, which I think was to have this call and know that it's similar just to like, you don't feel like going to work out, but once you're at the gym, you just do
Mhm.
it because you're there. It's like just showing up sometimes is enough to get you started.
Yeah. And I liked the point you made where it's like, well, some people might say that I should be able to do it on my own. Sure, that's fair. And at the same time, I would argue from my perspective that that's like inherently a self-centered approach, not selfish, not meant with like negative intention, but self-centered of, oh, well, this is just how it affects me. And you know what? I'm a strong, independent man. I can make my own decision. It's like, sure, but also your decision has effects on a relationship. And so you chose to consider how you're feeling, but also consider how it affects the relationship and where I'm at. And of course, just we both know how this goes. In our relationship, we kind of have a set standard. If this was every week, I might be exasperating, like, all right, dude, look, this is every week. But you're like, hey, I'm not feeling this. Okay, look, I would like to have the call, and I think it'd probably be fine ultimately. But if you feel like you can't do that today, that's okay too, you know? And the only reason you were probably comfortable doing like making the choice you did is because over time you recognize that, hey, I'm not going to batter you and pressure
Yeah.
you, trying to make you change your mind. I'm going to listen to you. I might put a little pressure of like from the other side, not to change your mind, but just to be like, well, also this, which is good. That's healthy
Yeah. Like I
relationship.
can't think of all the outcomes and options by myself.
Yeah. And I think we would have a lot more success in doing what we want if we think about it like that too. Like, oh, I don't feel like going to the gym today. Sure. And if it's just about how I feel, great. That's it. But what if I'm thinking about it as like the same way I would think about a relationship with you, I think about a relationship with myself. Yeah, I don't feel like this, but would this be better for the relationship with myself? Well, yeah, it would flow into me a little bit more. So I think it's a really cool way to consider that. And I feel like you said some other things I want to respond to, but now my mind's blanking, so apparently I'm done.
No, it's okay. And it's the classic. I think we've talked about this at least once or twice before, where I know that after the call, I'll feel better having done it.
Yeah.
But before, when I was initially like I'll just make the call, like I'll just call you, talk through it. I'll probably end up jumping on. Like I couldn't pull from the state of being and mindset that I would be in after call. I couldn't tap into that
Hmm.
Even though I know numerous times that there's probably been numerous times where both of us maybe had a little bit of feeling like, I don't feel like jumping on the call today,
Yeah.
but we did anyways. And then afterwards, you're so happy you did, and you couldn't imagine why you wouldn't have wanted to. And the same goes for, whether you hit the gym that day or not, you're going to feel better afterwards. Or if you're supposed to go and, hang out with a friend and you kind of wanted to blow it off because you just wanted to be lazy, but you know damn well that if you go, you're going to end up feeling better afterwards. Like,
Hmm.
why is it so hard to pull from that
Yeah, man.
preemptively when you're going
Well,
through it?
well, it is hard, and it is hard, especially when our experience is giving into the feeling, because you get, it's like that tension of, oh, I don't really want to go to the gym. It's like, okay, we'll just make a decision. Okay, I'm not going. Like that enough is like a comfort that usually reinforces that. Just make the decision, okay? And if we think about more thoughtfully, more like long term of that, like this morning I woke up at 6:15 because I wanted to go to the gym. It's been a couple days. I've been wanting to go to the gym, kind of been missing it. And I was like, I'm gonna wake up earlier than I normally do. I'm gonna go to the gym. And I woke up and I felt tired. And I was like, I could go to bed for 45 more minutes and just do that. And my brain was immediately like, nope, you set your mind on that. It doesn't matter how you feel. Just get up one step at a time, brush your teeth, change, just go through it. I go to the gym, I'm still exhausted. Okay, I'm in the gym, literally looking at my eyes. And at that moment, it was a moment where I was like, hey man, good job. Like I feel
Mm-hmm.
tired. I look tired and I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just started with one exercise. And next thing I know, I ended up challenging myself in a type of exercise that I haven't done for arguably years, whereas like very cardiovascular, like body movements, jumping jacks, and I was like out of breath, like I was painfully out of breath in a time where I really ought not to be. And I was like, dude, I feel so, and I got out of that workout, I showered, dude, I feel so energized today because I started my day that way. And that's more reinforcing than, oh, I'm tired and yeah, I'm gonna sleep for another 30 minutes, 45 minutes where I'm
Yeah.
like kind of asleep, kind of not asleep, and now I feel terrible going to work.
Yeah. And then you're lingering all day on, man, I had the time, I was up, I could have done it. Then you're beating yourself up. So like it's so clear when you stop and think about it
Mhm.
logically to go and do that thing that's on your mind. And I remember I made a video about this on the Good Vibe Guide channel. I think I
Vibe is
titled it
good.
something like anxiety and a new way of looking at it, where I kind of just made the argument that like your anxieties are more often than not, excluding the people that have like debilitating anxiety where they're like so worried about every little thing. That thing that we call anxiety, that I think is still rightfully called that, sometimes is just your intuition tapping you on the shoulder saying, hey, I know you're tired, but you should go to the gym today.
Mhm.
I know you don't feel like it, but there's a couple
Mhm.
things at work that need done. And these are some things that you should do. Let's take care of them. And if you shut them out, it builds. If you just address it, it's like bliss.
Yeah, I as a therapist, I endorse that message. I mean, that was beautifully said, honestly.
Yeah.
It's perfect. And that's my whole point of why one of the main components of how I try to get people to think differently is, hey, your thoughts and feelings that are really overwhelming to you, they're information. We give them scary big words. The words just describe an experience that you're having. That experience is happening, whether I call it depression or anxiety or suicidality or whatever it is. The point is, when we try to run away from them, we cause distress. But when we try to listen to them, not act on them, but listen to the information they're giving us, and then make informed, actionable decisions based on that information, but also based on my values and my wisdom, then they're like all of a sudden not a problem because they're actually being listened to. And I often use the example of a toddler or a puppy. If a puppy is coming up and pawing you because it wants attention and you just push it away, well, eventually it might come up and it might jump on you because it's like, no, I'm going to be heard. Or a toddler might eventually throw a temper tantrum. But if you actually go and you're like, okay, hey, what do you want? And it's like, oh, I just want to play. It's okay, let me play with you for 5 minutes. I don't have to do it for 2 hours, but let me just give you what you need. I'll do what I need and we'll balance it. Where a
Yeah.
toddler, hey, oh, I need help with this. Okay, I'll help you. Just give me 5 minutes and then I'll help you with that. It's like, I don't need to, maybe a better example is if I'm bringing my nephew who's now 8 years old to his friend's house. Well, he's old enough to know how to get to his friend's house, probably. He's been there. So I can listen to him giving the directions, use the information he has, but I'm not going to let him drive the car.
Yeah, man. I think whenever you have those lingering thoughts, I was trying to think of a good analogy, and for some reason, it's like you're in a boxing match with that intuition yourself, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
And it's so hard because there's other things going on in the ring or outside of the ring. And you want to entertain and acknowledge those things and put time and effort and energy into them. But you're so like locked in on that individual fight that it makes
Mhm.
it so hard to see the rest of the world. So it's almost like you need to just fight, knock that guy out, and then you can step past it and move on into the other things that are, in your peripherals. And that's how I always feel whenever I'm maybe in like a social setting where I'm letting my annoyance of how maybe a certain social setting is going. For example, like that guy we were talking about in the sauna that sometimes just like rants. It's like, what if I could just take control and acknowledge it, accept it, and try to find a way to enjoy it or intervene and kind of take my own turn on it without being, not in like a controlling or demeaning
Mhm.
way. And that's kind of like how I'm thinking through like getting through that match so that you can then enjoy whatever setting you're in
Yeah.
to its fullest potential instead of trying to balance your energy into that fight and entertaining the things going on
Yeah.
out
It's
there.
consuming. It's distracting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the one thing I would caveat if we were doing my style of therapy
Hmm.
is instead of trying to knock that person out, I would just say, why do you have to fight? Just get out of the ring. Let's learn skills how to just drop the fight because that fight is it's not it's not the thought, it's not that that fighter is present that is the issue. It's that you're engaging them in a fight that's the issue, which you have
Mm.
control over. And so that's like my whole style of therapy. It's like we use the analogy of tug of war a lot, where you're pulling, I'm pulling, you're pulling, I'm pulling, you're pulling, and then sometimes I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna let go of the rope. And once I let go of the rope, the person can pull it as much as they want. Doesn't do anything to me at that point. You
Yeah,
know?
I've detached essentially from it. And
Yes. And the word we
yeah,
use is diffuse, but it means the same thing.
yeah. And I think that again, it's like listen to those intuitions and your
Hmm.
anxiety because it probably is trying to tell you something that is on your mind for a reason. But unless you're in a position to actually address it right now, which
Hmm.
you aren't always, that's where it's important to just, pick and choose when you engage in that tug of war battle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes you have to have that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to change everything. It's just what's not helping you. Have you ever heard of the book The Happiness Trap by chance?
I don't think so.
It's a book about like Russ Harris writes it, and it's the style of therapy I do. Um, but it's meant for like everyday people. It's not like a therapist's book. It's literally written in a very kind of enjoyable context to try to teach lessons and like styles of interacting with your internal processing thoughts and feelings in a completely different way than how most people intuitively do it, right? Like fighting. Um, I'd be curious if you ever were interested in if you read it and kind of like your thoughts on it. It's like 200 and some pages, I think, but he encourages people to go through it very slowly.
The
And what I really
happiness
like about
track
it, the happiness trap.
trap, Mr. Russ Harris.
Yeah. And you can find it on like used books for like less than $5 a lot of times, like thriftbooks.com or secondsale.com, which I like.
Yeah, I actually have another book that I ordered on Amazon that I didn't start. Forget what it's called. Hadley recommended it. So I have a small list, but I can add this to it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
found it here, paperback for like $11.
Yeah. I mean, I think they even have like an audiobook if you prefer that, but um,
I
it's a really
definitely do
cool concept
sometimes.
of thinking. And it's one of the main things I learned my style of therapy from because like a good act practitioner uses it on themselves. Like we practice it daily, kind of practice what you preach. Yeah, it's just interesting. And this is less about me being like, oh man, you need therapy.
No, no, I know. Just more or less like, hey, like this was something that I had some takeaways from. You might too, if you
Yeah,
want to. Yeah.
yeah, and it would be really cool to kind of like talk with that common language if you did like it. And I mean, he has different versions of it too, like confidence gap, helping people be confident. He has one working through grief, one based on relationships, but it's like what I do for therapy, and it's really cool.
Yeah. No, that would be cool. And I feel like that would be an example of some things that we can do. Not that we can't always just pick up and shoot the shit for an hour, but it would be cool to have like very specific topics that we both
Yeah,
had like our own experience of, whether it be a book or we agreed to both watch a movie or listen to a podcast and then like
yeah.
dissect it. Like I think that that's something that we could definitely add in. So I do like that idea. I feel like that's something we were doing a lot in the beginning, actually, and we kind of, for one reason or another, like fell out of it.
Well, I
Probably
think it
because
was just
like
the extended time gap because of my traveling.
that, but also too, like I know I've been a little bit less heavy into these Joe Rogan style
Yeah,
podcasts where it's like
insane
sometimes it's just a
content.
lot. It's just a lot to be watching something like that all the time. Just just a lot to carry around with you all day, every day, especially whenever you don't have someone to kind of talk about it with
Yeah,
and
like
diffuse it
pouring
a
information
little
in, and
bit.
then you're just like,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's funny. I find myself like working out now and I go for a podcast and I click it and I hear the first noise. I'm just like, oh, I'm just like, yep, no, I don't want that. I just
Yeah,
need
I know.
music. I just need to chill.
Yeah, no, I know. Uh, sometimes I don't even know what to watch or what to listen to whenever I'm just like kind of at work. And I've been definitely going for like yesterday, pretty much all day when I was just kind of at my computer, just like working, playing the game, like very just like, hey, I don't need to be engaging with a new movie or a show right now. I like sometimes just like beats, um, no words, just a tune.
Yeah. Yeah, that old RuneScape YouTube tune.
Yeah, yeah, I remember you saying like, God, whether I knew the game or not, I just like the vibe that this has.
Yeah. Dude, I love that. I have a Spotify playlist. I think it's called Unconscious Beats or something like that. It's just this like very deep ethereal, similar to the RuneScape style, where it's just like
Yeah,
you almost just it's like brings you into a flow where now my thoughts and feelings have freedom to express themselves rather than like I'm just taking in information and not listening to myself, you know?
yeah,
And sometimes that's nice too, because it just allows me to process. It allows me to, what do I think? Like now I've taken in all this information, what do I want to keep? What am I going to do with it?
right. No,
If
I know.
anything.
I know. And sometimes, if I'm watching something, it could be like the stupidest video that like adds no value to my life. But if I'm distracted doing whatever it was I was doing, that I put that on to have in the background. If I feel like I just missed something, I'm like, then I like take time and like reverse it back
Mhm.
and then like listen to it. And it's like sometimes it's a little bit too much. And that kind of ties into the whole, why do we always need so much engagement and like our attention span conversation? But that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Yeah, man. Um, you good to wrap it for today?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like
Okay.
we're at a good spot. I'm glad we did this. And I'm glad that,
Yeah, thanks for calling and discussing it.
yeah.
And
And
ultimately,
like,
yeah,
it's like, for anyone, including myself, you, me, whoever, I wish that was something that was just a little bit easier. Like that should, I mean, it was a no brainer. I didn't put a lot of time into it. I acknowledged the feeling of being like, okay, me and Caleb are having a call. I literally texted you, you texted me at the exact same time,
yeah,
and then literally wrapped up that video and called you right away. So it wasn't like I ruminated for 20 minutes, like, ah, should I call him? Should I not? Like,
yeah,
but that's something I know I'm trying to work on is just like, if there's something on my mind, just talk it through, just get
yeah.
it out and
Make
then,
a decision.
yeah, make a
Call them, don't
decision. And
call them. And if you need to talk about it. But the thinking is what traps us.
yeah, exactly, man.
Should I? Should I? Should I? Should I?
Yeah. But yeah, dude, just for the sake of like, I don't know, I just love taking a look at this. So this Caleb and Jesse's conversations. Here I'm putting it in the chat as a link.
Like,
So after today's, we'll have like
yeah,
12.
I think I'm gonna try to see if I can like link this to my Faithful Surrender YouTube channel because I think these are also
Yeah.
really cool conversations to just offer to like any subscribers I do have.
Oh, you totally could. Yeah, find us. Just literally copy the playlist link.
Okay.
Should let you embed it some way. But yeah, man, I'll get this one uploaded once it's all completed, some point for the end of the day. And yeah, we'll do this again next week, brother.
Yeah, man. All right. I love you, man. Take care of yourself.
Love you too, buddy. Have
And
a good afternoon.
all right.
See ya. Bye
Peace.
bye.